Welcome back to Relationship Matters. Thank you for joining us and checking us out. It's another day, another talk about the importance of relationships. Today, we're going to be digging deeper into the intricacies of relationships to understand. And the topic today is going to be about the what? So the saying is like the devil is in the details, but today's talk is going to be about Satan in the relationships. Stick around. We have a lot of good stuff to share with you, and looking forward to share that with you. All right, so picture this. You are in this awesome relationship, and this relationship that means the whole world to you. It's been wonderful experience, has countless beautiful memories, and all of a sudden, some doubts starts to creep in your head. Some thoughts, things that start to come in your mind without any base to or a foundation to base it on, and before you know it, this used to be healthy, strong relationship is now on the bricks of a collapse. So, what do you think would go wrong? What would have gone wrong for such a scenario that if we were to assume this scenario? What do you think would have been what could have gone wrong to for this relationship to end up the way it is? What could have caused these thoughts and these assumptions and no foundation to?
I guess over time you start to learn stuff about a person. And
Over time,
you learn more about the person and you start seeing things that you didn't before.
you learn more about a person and you see things that you didn't see before, and therefore these thoughts start to creep up. What else could be going on?
Get used to a person, and then now that you're so used to this person, then now you have a lot of time to think about other things, and then all these thoughts start coming.
So you get used to this person, and then
You just have nothing new to think about this person, right? So then all these negative thoughts will start coming.
Where these negative thoughts come in? If you're used to
Because you
this
have more
person,
the free time, right?
because of
The free time you have now.
there's the free time you have. You said
Before
so.
this, you were so obsessed with that person. Now that you're used to this person, already you're no more obsessed.
Oh,
It's kind of like getting bored.
Get bored.
so you're been busy on how to win this person. So you're always thinking of things to do and things to make the relationship. And then once that person
is no more
is in your life, your thoughts are like, what do we do now?
It's
Yes?
also like
Huh?
at some point people stop matching your energy or their energy just drops. And then you don't feel like putting enough effort into them because they don't put effort into you.
Okay, so the question is, where do these assumptions come from? Where do these thoughts come from?
Oh, I'm gonna say something different.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So, oddly enough, there are people who think in a certain way where it's like their partner may be too good for them, which makes them overthink. Is like, should I be in this relationship? What if this person leaves because they are too good? And then I would be devastated if they were leave. So they start kind of like overthinking. I mean, that could also root from being insecure, for sure.
So insecurity causes these thoughts to creep out or
Yeah.
creep in.
Or like lack of picture.
So you've been in this relationship for a long time. Why insecurity?
guess it may just be developing more and more,
Insecurity develops more and more.
maybe in the back.
If
What
not
I'm
dealt
hearing
with,
here, this opinion is suggesting that how can I be insecure? I already got the person I've been looking for. Now I'm really comfortable with that. Yeah?
I don't know.
Oh,
Well, the other
okay.
side was that that they might realize that they're too good, like the other person is too good for them, and then what if they start realizing that for themselves?
Yeah, but you've been in this relationship that was so meaningful to you for so long. Where did this seeds, there are these seeds of the
It
thoughts come
grows
from?
over time.
Grows over time.
If
Where did they
you
come from?
don't-
They just come from
Well, people are
X-rays
insecure
or
for
sun
different
rays.
reasons,
Sorry?
right? People are insecure for different reasons. And if it's not dealt with, it just grows over time. So you could have been in a relationship for like 10 years, but you didn't deal with your insecurity. So at some point, it's going to catch up with you.
You were saying?
Yeah, in the beginning also you get all these bad thoughts, but then you don't react to those thoughts in the beginning.
Yeah.
But then later on, then you start reacting, and then nothing.
Yeah. These seeds, when they linger in our head and we don't address them, they grow, like you were saying. They tend to grow. And the more they grow, they become what? I'm sorry?
More powerful.
More powerful. So it starts as a seed, as a hint, as a glimpse, but then it becomes a thought, and then becomes a belief, and you act on it.
I would say it would start off as a belief, an assumption, in which could solidify to what you perceive as reality.
Yeah.
Which may not even what is like, it might not be the case, but because your thoughts, your deep rooted thoughts have just been developing, you're continuously allowing it to happen, it becomes your reality.
Yeah.
You accept that reality.
Yeah. And that's where we would say that it becomes, so these thoughts become your reality, but they're not actual, then they're not actually what's happening. Yeah. So you mentioned something about you had a long-term relationship, and all of a sudden it went.
It got bad very quickly.
Is it related to what we're talking about? Some kind of.
Yes, in a sense where it is the forged reality that I was talking about. And they have this. So, for example, the relationship is one bubble, and she has her own bubble of her perception of the relationship. But it was never talked about, and then the reality kind of sets in for her. It started off as a thought that was not addressed or did not communicate at all. And then over time, it just became like their reality, in which I was aware of till towards the end, and it just kind of like went south.
And that's where Satan came into the relationship.
Oh, interesting.
Satan works on a one-on-one. When we collaborate, when we work together, and that's what communication is all about, we rule out Satan. I mean, it could be Satan, could be ourselves, could be self-talk, could be a lot of things, but I'd like to blame it on Satan. You know, Satan is Santa Claus. Santa also. Scrambled, right? Scrambled.
Is it? Oh, yeah,
Santa and Satan.
yeah.
Hi, yeah. But we're not talking about, we talked about Santa before. So when we talk about the devil in the details, it's really, really true. And that's really what comes down to relationships. If we're not paying attention to these little details in the relationship, Satan will win. Will break it apart. So therefore, we need to pay attention to these minor details that come. Because these thoughts, just like a seed, starts like a seed and starts to sprout, and it became a weed, and the weed becomes stronger. And what happens when you have a pot of a tree that is surrounded with weed? The weed will survive, and the tree will die. Think of that just like how you would imagine it to be in a relationship. So, so therefore, paying attention to these minor details is really going to help us to flourish in a relationship, any relationship. And that's by communicating. And not only communicating, but also communicating openly, transparently, and as I mentioned before in many talks before, many, more like male than female, they feel vulnerable to talk about these openly. And that's why the stigma is that guys or men lie. Actually, it is a stigma. It is something that men are famous for. When they are in a relationship, they lie to their partner, they lie to their spouse, they lie to their fiance, girlfriend, whatever it is. But actually, they're not necessarily lying because they're bad people. They're just not comfortable with being vulnerable. And communication makes us vulnerable. Because your partner wants answers. And those answers need to be truthful. And if you're truthful, you might sound like childish, but therefore you want to be a man. Like, just did that. You're just basically hiding the truth. But guess what? Also, some females also do the same thing. So it's not necessarily all men and none of the women, none of the females, but it's more famous amongst men because they feel less comfortable to be vulnerable and sit down and open up. It takes a lot of energy. It's just not something that they're accustomed to. Based on what? Where did that come
They want to not feel less masculine.
from? This masculine. So we associated masculinity to vulnerability. I'm sorry? To emotions. If you're emotional, then you're not masculine. You're not a man. If you're vulnerable, you're not a man. That's actually very likely to be the case, but where did that come from? Society. What else? I'd like to blame Hollywood and Bollywood. Because we're more interacting to TVs and devices more than we are interacted to society. That's the fact.
But I would argue Hollywood and Bollywood were created because of the society. So society is the bigger cause.
I would argue it's a cultural attribution.
It's a cultural attribution.
How your upbringing is cultural.
But then what's the difference between the society and the culture?
And what's this difference
between
between
also the culture?
the society is the culture?
I mean, because of culture and society.
Because of culture and society, then?
So this ideology of being a man and a traditional mindset, which does not allow us to see vulnerability as something that's okay. Yeah. Hence why we have a tendency to want to not.
So which one came, the egg or the chicken? Society or the movies and Bollywoods and Hollywoods? Really?
It's not like movies existed like from the
Out
dinosaur
of
age.
nowhere, yeah.
So you're saying in the dinosaur age
There's a society.
that it was accompanied, it was expected from the man to be masculine and not to be vulnerable.
I think it came from, like the hunter-gatherer stages and like the toxic masculinity. Be like, I can kill a bear for you to eat, But research has shown that like a lot of the female gatherers were the ones that were bringing in more food than the hunters. So like that's when
They bring in fiber into the diet.
like came about. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good thoughts. Good sharing. I appreciate your sharing on that. Any other thoughts on that?
I feel like the movies and the TV shows, they're just an outlet for like everything that the society and the people want to say. So it was already there to begin with. And it's just gone global. It's just gone so accessible. Not everyone's just got it on their phones all the time. It's basically the same.
Yeah, but they had public TV. All countries, they had public TV before Netflix and YouTube and all that. public TV that showed a lot of sitcoms, a lot of drama, sets.
So you're saying that there was no society before TV?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we're impacted more by the TV and the messages that are coming from the entertainment than we are impacted from the society.
People got impacted by the society and then they created the TV, which in turn affected us even more.
So if that's the case, then how come we see very famous personalities and people in the history that they were okay with being vulnerable, and that did not define masculinity for them? They were vulnerable.
For example,
All of the, I mean,
last time those days people that were masculine, they were okay about being vulnerable. That's what
yeah,
they did.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
So people before were more vulnerable compared to people now?
No, I'm saying that vulnerability was not connected to masculinity in the past as much as it is right now.
So I think it's the distinction of masculinity and toxic masculinity.
Tell me more. So the
I-
difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity. Tell me more.
Yeah, toxic masculinity you see it's more of like the idea of this alpha mentality, very let's see, very instinctive, instinctively dominant, very assertive, very selfish, that kind of like mindset. But that shouldn't really define what actual masculinity is, because I think it's like more complex than that. I think vulnerability should be a trait of masculinity, but it's overruled by societal ideals.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
So what made that change in the past?
I think the TV screwed it up for everyone.
The TV screwed it up for everyone.
They thought it's toxic masculinity instead of the real masculinity.
I would like to vote for
it
that
was
as
the
well.
TV in general. I think it was everything combined.
So I would like to also let's talk about femininity or feminism. Being a feminine, being or looking at or seeing a feminine character. Where did that come from? Defining feminine.
Same reasons.
Where did that come from? Society, or did that come from TV?
Oh,
I would like
Like the
I would like to
societal
argue that it came from TV. Because I'm sorry,
But it's not from nature.
it's not from nature.
What it means when the first human being, their own family.
I can assure you, if you look at the history of bathing suits for men and women, and you see that they're covering more skins the further back in history you go. Where did that come from? And if you look really into that and how the definition of what is sexy and what is not, and you would look at it, all was propagated in TV. From TV.
No, but feminism, femininity and masculinity is not something that comes from nature.
Well, they are from nature, but what defined them to be what we have today? So now a feminine, it feels like if a girl, some women, they feel like if I'm feminine, that means I'm weak. I need to be balancing it. I need to show that I'm a strong person, and I don't need to cry. And I honestly believe that there are so many girls that are ladies, they feel like if they cry that's a weakness. They're really struggling with that because the society put those boundaries. It's like, I really wanted to talk to my boss, but I didn't want to cry. But I cried, and I really didn't like that. What's wrong with crying to your boss? You're in front of your boss. You're emotional. You cry. If you're a guy or a girl, doesn't really matter.
but
Why does
then,
it matter?
Is that because of society or is it because of TV?
That's because the TV, like what man said, the TV focused on one side of what femininity is and one side of masculinity, and they basically exacerbated that, and they made that the norm without balancing the healthy masculinity, like you mentioned, versus the toxic masculinity, and versus same thing for feminine. That's my argument. You don't have to agree with it. So how would you refute that? You can, anybody.
There's not just TV, there's other things, right? I mean, TV cannot be the only reason why
True,
the whole thing
true. What do you think would be other contributors?
other medium, I don't know.
Media.
No, other mediums
Hmm.
other than
Anyone else would like to? Give some ideas on that.
It's also what is taught by whoever's raising you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your parents or maybe like
Or, like,
parental figures.
The fact that our parents don't even know why they think like that was crazy.
The fact that the parents don't know,
Why they think the way they think.
the
why-
parents don't know why the parents think that way.
Yeah.
Well, not the children, but the parents don't know why they think the parents think that way, right?
No, my parents don't really know why they have the perspective on masculinity and femininity like they do. And I ask them often because reasons. And my mom usually doesn't have an answer.
Mm.
So I guess it was because of how she was raised and then because of how her parents were raised.
Mm.
So it's like a combination of things, and it basically just dates back to the society and culture, to be honest.
Okay, appreciate that. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
It's, I think, what the people around you, like how the people around you act affects you more than how media affects you.
So you don't agree. Okay. So the people around you affect you
So-
more than the media affect you.
Yeah, so let's say you're in a school, right? And all your classmates have like really distinct like masculine or feminine tendencies. And so you're more likely to follow whatever your peers are doing compared to what you see on TV because you want to be accepted by your peers.
Yeah.
So I think your environment affects you more.
Yeah. So how come we have people that once they're out of that environment, they don't follow that norm anymore?
Because they're now in a new environment, so they have to like change to fit in again.
Reevaluation
Yeah.
of thoughts.
Evaluation of
Thoughts.
Tell me more. What does that mean?
Reevaluation of thoughts. So when they're out of that mindset, they're now in a different environment, and that causes them to rethink everything, and their opinion changes based on that.
Okay, I take that. So the environment defines the person's norms despite what shows
It doesn't
in
have
movies.
to, but it can.
So the movies and what goes on TV and the social media does not really have any impact on us.
they do, but not as much as like when you hang out with people.
I guess in the olden days, maybe it affected people a little more than it does now because now everybody realizes everything on the TV is fake. So I guess we can't speak on it because we are in this generation. We don't really know how it worked back then.
All right. Anything else you want to add? So the man is vulnerable to open up in communication because that's the environment that he grew up in.
Maybe the father told him that trying in front of people will make him look weak and idiotic. So
And where did that thought come from? From his father.
his father, sorry,
And where did that thought come from? From his father.
people around him.
So So in terms of the what Hollywood and Bollywood are portraying is within that acceptance, within the norm of that man is masculine, you don't cry, or is it the opposite?
But I think in a way it's a good thing, because if we cry and do all those stuff, then we won't be growing as much as we have, right?
Well, it's not about crying. I'm not saying we should cry. I'm just saying being comfortable with being vulnerable.
Once in a while, it's okay now.
Mm. What are your thoughts? Once in a while is okay. What are your thoughts?
Don't be crying the whole time. Then
What?
every night alone.
What?
Thing is excellent. Like there's time and a place.
The time and the place. We're talking about the man with his wife, or the man with his
Yeah.
girlfriend. That's the time and that's the place. And that's okay. Once in a while.
With what?
Or
is
always?
okay. Always you cannot. Always you should be living the cave.
Always you'll be living in the cave, being vulnerable.
I mean, if men were vulnerable all the time, then there won't be any progression in
Mm.
mankind.
So the vulnerability here is about opening up to
Yeah.
talk about what we think and what we have and what we need and what we feel and all
Once
that.
in a while it's okay.
Once in a while.
Shouldn't be
I
open
guess it's
opening up
easier for people who grew up being able to do that.
Okay, so that's again the environment, and that's the society. Mm. Okay. So which one came first, the egg or the chicken? Society came up with this, and it was reinforced by Hollywood and Bollywood, or was it initiated by Hollywood and Bollywood, and then the society adapted to it?
I mean, why would Hollywood and Bollywood just
So
suddenly be like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing? Where did they
I'm not
get
talking
that
about the how. I'm talking about like based on what we know. So I would like you folks, I invite you to look at James Bond movies from the first one until the last one. And you tell me about the message that you get throughout. Men towards women, women towards women, and men towards men and women towards men. Did I cover them all? So you will see the difference is like day and night. In the early stage, the women were subjugated as a beauty representation, and they're just a subject. Nothing more, nothing less. And the man had the power to be cool and to be powerful, to manipulate the woman and to fall in love with them. So I like that so easily. You really need to understand the history of Hollywood and Bollywood. So that's how your parents grew up, watching those old movies and like those old movies of James Bond and like James Bond movies. And that's why they tell you crying is not acceptable. So the society, I would like to differ that the society is highly influenced by the entertainment, just like how this generation is influenced, maybe not you, maybe not individually, but generally speaking, this generation is influenced highly by social media. Posting here, posting there, Instagram here, Instagram there is quite heavily used. And a lot of us check it out. How many people don't check TikTok? I challenge you if you don't check TikTok on a daily basis or shorts, YouTube shorts. What is all that? This is someone's like creativity, and they're just putting it as a joke or something. That's something does that impact us? Yes, absolutely. And these are some of the seeds that really come into our relationship.
But within Hollywood and Bollywood being making entertainment that is based on what the society is as correct and good.
You would think that would be noble, wouldn't it?
Hence, it is why it is agreeable in society for that we consider as entertainment because they agree to it.
That's why they show.
I'm sorry.
No, they agree to it. That's why they explain it.
They make it based on what
Based on what we like.
it's based on the society.
Hmm.
So doesn't that make the society but
Does it make the society?
less content than the origin?
Hmm.
As society changes, the entertainment industry
Yeah,
changes.
Hmm.
So I think it's because of the changes in society that these kind of movies come out.
So you're saying that when the first movie of, say for example, um, um,
They used to make fun of people. Now they don't make fun of people.
that's another example. Yeah, yeah, that's another example. So they were subjugating women to be an eye candy in James Bond movies, earlier ones. So you're saying when they released that in England, it was coming from the society in Asia.
Previously,
That was coming from the society in Asia.
why Asia?
I'm asking.
If it was an Asian movie, then it would.
That's my point.
That
Hollywood
makes
is
sense.
impacting, maybe it's coming from the society within the English, but actually it's coming from a small group that see it that way, that made it a normal, they normalized it through the movie, and then it became global. So you tell me which one the society that is impacting her. Is it the movie that is impacting the society in Asia, or is it the society in Asia is impacting the movie?
But don't like movies and TV shows get watched the most because they're the ones that are
They
most
get watched
popular.
that?
Are they the most popular because they're the ones that are resonating the most with the people, with the society?
Mm.
So they would have already had to think like that to make these movies, these TV shows popular.
So what's the answer to my question?
Why is this?
Was it the movie that impacted the society in Asia on what's the norm in Asia, or was it the society of of this Asia was represented in the movie? Actually, if you look at those movies, you will see how they are racist against the Asian culture.
I think it's less about that, but more about westernization in Asia.
Thank you. That's globalization.
Like,
Globalization.
but more specifically from
Western.
the West.
Well, who's leading globalization? China?
More like how how do you explain?
Who's running globalization? Who's behind globalization? Do you guys know about globalization? We called it westernization. What's the difference?
Westernization is more like how, like, let's say Asian people, right? They want to become more like the West.
Because they lived in the US. They lived in
No.
England.
Because
What?
how the West like portrays that they are better than
How do they,
Asia.
what do they use to
So-
portray that? What do they use to portray that? To be Western?
Political power.
Political power, how is that? So I'm influenced as a youngster, I'm influenced because of their political powers to be like
No,
that.
I mean the technology that they have.
What's the technology? How do they portray themselves to me so that I feel like I want to be like them?
I mean, it's westernization through globalization.
And what do they use to do that? What's that?
Social media
Entertainment
technology.
industry.
Social media and technology, sorry?
The entertainment industry.
The entertainment industry. I'm sorry?
Is that the answer you're looking
I'm
for?
asking
Because
how do people know about what westernization is? How did you grow up? What's a Western life to be? How did you find out?
Because they look so cool and
I think
How
that's
did
the
you find
mindset.
out they
Through
look so cool? Where did you see them? Exactly my point. The TV.
But I would argue
We go around and around, and that's really where it's coming from. The societies are significantly impacted by TV. You can disagree, but I have the facts, and I just showed you guys some examples that is coming from TV.
I guess overall yes, but also like they don't really do it intentionally. They just show what's real
Yeah, I'm not
and
talking.
what
Yeah,
actually exists.
yeah. I'm not questioning their intention or all that, but I'm just highlighting the impact of TV and the entertainment industry and social media on the unique the small unit of a family, which is a couple, and they're determining what's normal and what's not. It works in the Western society, but when you get it in a global setting, it's really ruining the society. It's ruining it. When Korea became global, a lot of people want to look like Korea. Where did that come from? Society? No, it came from the TV. It came from the phone. It came from the industry, entertainment industry. Everybody wants to dress like them. Anybody wants to dance like them. They start talking about Korea. Same thing. That's my argument.
But why do you say it's ruining it? I mean, if it's not affecting that person, then it's okay to follow it. But
It isolates that person from within their society. It makes that disconnection between him and her with their family. Because I heard the questions like, I heard you saying, asking your mom, where did this come from? Well, the premise of that question is coming from what? I discovered something different from what you told me, and when your dad told me, and from your dad told me. Where did I find that from? Globalization, TV, entertainment. I tell you, my first experience, the first time I ever saw people kiss was on TV. When was the first time you saw your people kiss? Do parents really sit around and like, guys, let me show you how to kiss? That doesn't happen. TV has been the uninvited guest in every home, and we pay so much money to keep it. And now it's not only TV. So in the old days, TV, everybody gather, watch the same thing. Now, if you go out and you go see a family in a restaurant, they're together, everybody's on their phone. They're watching different things. I don't know if you guys notice that, but I notice it, almost every time I go out. And they're not really like checking text, or they're actually looking at something. And many times I just have the intention to walk around to see, this one is watching a movie, this one is watching TikTok, this one is watching, it's totally different. Yes?
I guess for the masculinity part, we gotta time travel and go back all the way when it started and see whether TVs existed.
I would like to generalize this. It's not about masculinity. It's about normalizing. What is normal in a relationship is coming from the entertainment industry.
It used to, yeah.
It used to.
even the clothes you wear, so
I'm sorry?
I mean, even the clothes you wear, the trend.
Thank you very much. What do you think about the trends? How do you know the trends? Where is that coming from? The society? No. It's not coming from the society, I can assure you that. Because maybe you are, like I mentioned earlier, you may be in compliance in the school environment, but once you're out of the school, you're not abiding by it, but you are committed, you are forced to follow the society in a school. But that doesn't mean you really are going to do the same thing after you're done with the school. So that's a conditional compliance, a conditional impact from the environment. So it's not about masculinity and femininity, but it's about normalizing what is normal in a relationship is coming from no one other than entertainment industry. That's my argument. So if that's the case, so how do we get rid of this evil, if I were to say, seeds that coming in to really destroy the relationship? Because I see these seeds of Satan, I call it Satan in the relationship, really coming from a very, very exciting, just loving sources, but their hidden messages is what's really ruining us.
Guess you have to be self-aware.
Self-aware is the one important thing, absolutely.
Realize that if you really want to look at TV and then get relationship advice or whatever from there, then might as well treat your relationship like you're on TV.
Yeah.
Just don't take it seriously or whatever.
Well, yeah, you don't want to compare.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to compare. How do children or youngsters or people learn about using drugs?
I never did that once.
I'm just asking, what would you guess? What would you guess?
It's a mix.
This means-
Either bad company or saw how the impact of how drugs or alcohol make people happy. And they connected that. And they did it on their own. Or they became the bad company.
Like the principle.
So it's important to be mindful of where these Satan thoughts come into relationship. It's really important to look into these small hidden things that we see around us. It's important to be mindful that when we disagree with the previous generations, we need to understand where is this thought coming from. If it's coming from entertainment because it looked good, you really need to understand what's happening with that. What makes this movie or this sitcom or whatever the correct way versus what your parents or grandparents used to have, what is correct and what used to be correct. It's important for us to really pause and think about how it's impacting me as a person, as an individual, or as a person in a relationship. So therefore, I invite everybody, as awkward as it can be or as uncomfortable it can be, to get used to being vulnerable in communications. Doesn't make you lesser. It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you anything other than a better connector in your relationship. Last thoughts? Yeah.
Is that why you don't let us use phone?
I'm sorry?
Is that why you don't let us use phone? You don't want us to look at the screen one.
I don't know, that has nothing to do with that. Well, that's a good question. What's so funny about that? Better than assuming. I'm sorry?
No, but it is a bad thing to keep looking at your phone and
Yeah.
that's just something.
It just makes that disconnection. I mean, if we're going to talk more a little bit about this, we can say that parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents spend a lot of time and effort to make a comfortable life to their children, whichever stages they are. But the more the gap is, I mean, again, my argument is this gap is not coming from lineage, it's coming from an external. And the only external has been in generations has been the TV. That's the argument that I'm basing here. If you don't disagree, please leave a message, send a comment, put a comment. More than happy to learn from everybody. I learned a few things from everybody, and I counter argued, I feel, but I didn't hear a comeback after that. It's either they're giving up, or they're surrendering, or they are convinced, or they like what being presented. But feel free to challenge these thoughts. I'm not saying I'm 100% accurate, but I'm 100%. I 100% feel strong about this because of this is not something that it's not an opinion, but it's actually research has been done on that. Couples and divorces happen because of that. Comparing it to other people in social media and TVs and what should and what should not. It's significantly impacting relationship between the same family, that you find children on their own away from the family and sitting in rooms, and they're not feeling comfortable to connect with parents because of other reasons that you don't feel comfortable to talk to them. So it's important to feel vulnerable. It's important to reach out. It's important to express your true self in a relationship that is meaningful to you, and challenging these seeds of doubts and comparison that really come and creep up in our heads. Just be mindful where these things come. Right, so we're just going to end it here, and until that next talk, I hope you all have safe relationships and stay happy.